Oh man, I gotta say, I absolutely love summer movies. Alright my friends, welcome back to the Bankrupt Hippo YouTube channel, and this is another episode of Coffee and Kernels where we talk about the world of movies, video games, TV shows, and other media, and all the glorious things going on within it. We got another show for you today. Today's show is going to be mainly surrounding movies and TV shows because summers at the movies are now back in session. We're going to talk about some movie trailers and also what their trailers did for my anticipation of the movie and whether or not I'm looking forward to said movies. We're also going to do a review of Black Widow, which actually just came out this weekend, and then I'm also going to review Loki episode 5. And there's only one episode of Loki left, that's episode 6, and it feels weird because it feels like this series just kind of came and went so fast, it's hard to believe. So let's get started. We'll get right into it. To kick off this episode, we're actually going to introduce a new segment I'm going to call Upcoming Movies. I got this inspiration from watching Black Widow this weekend. Basically, what we're going to do is I'm going to take some of the movie trailers that I saw from going and seeing the movie, whichever movie it was. In this case, it was Black Widow. And I'm going to talk about the trailers and whether or not my anticipation level for the movie has increased because of the trailer. Plus, it gives you guys a radar as to what's going to be coming out over the next few weeks. And one disclaimer for this, the only trailers I'm going to really be talking about are those that are coming out within like the next 2 or 3 weeks. I don't want to talk about trailers too far in advance because then if you guys get excited as I am about these movies, I don't want you to have to feel like you got to wait even longer. So for now, I'm just going to stick with movies that are coming out within the next 2 to 3 weeks. We'll go in chronological order here. First, I'll start off with M. Night Shyamalan's Old. So I was in the theater yesterday and I was watching the trailer for this movie, and it was a bit of a longer trailer. I believe there's been 2 or 3 trailers for this movie, and I gotta say, this last trailer I saw really heightened my excitement for Old. The reason being is because it seems like more of like a psychological thriller movie. The trailers are always structured in such a way where you combine the music with the scenes of peril with the actors, and it really starts to build like a heightened sense of fear. At least that's the emotion that I feel coming out of watching some of these trailers. And I really enjoy that kind of thing. I'm a big fan of horror movies and also psychological thrillers, and it seems like some of M. Night Shyamalan's movies have really resonated with me, which I'm really excited for. I think one of his ones that really resonated with me was The Visit. It was the one with Catherine Hahn that took place years ago. I thought that was pretty good overall. So after watching the trailer, my anticipation for the movie is definitely higher, so good on the trailer for that. And another really intriguing thing about this is the only thing I really know about this movie is, one, the director, because M. Night Shyamalan is a pretty notorious director. In his early days, he was, I believe, dubbed the next Steven Spielberg. Hasn't quite panned out, but I'd say he's still a solid director. And the only other actor I know in this movie is Alex Wolff. For those of you who don't know who Alex Wolff is, he was in the movie Hereditary, created by Ari Aster. He starred alongside Toni Collette, who I think should have probably won an Academy Award for Hereditary because it was crazy, crazy good. But I also know Alex Wolff from his days in the Naked Brothers Band. It was a really old show on Nickelodeon, I think dating all the way back to 2006. I was pretty young then, so the show kind of appealed to my demographic, but it feels really weird seeing him in that TV show, and now he's like in these blockbuster movies. So ladies and gentlemen, if you are interested in seeing it, it's going to be debuting on July 23rd. What do you make of the trailers? Are you excited for the movie? Whatever you think, comment below, let me know. The next trailer that's going to be coming up in chronological order is G.I. Joe Origins, that's Snake Eyes. And this movie, I want to preface this by saying I know absolutely nothing about the G.I. Joe franchise. I am not a fan of the franchise. I'm not even a fan of the action figures. I know very little about G.I. Joe other than it feels very militaristic and there's action involved. And I have to give it to this trailer. I had no intention whatsoever in going and seeing this movie until I saw this trailer. It made the movie look very interesting, and it made the movie look like a lot of fun to watch, mainly because of a lot of the action that goes on in the trailer and a little bit of intrigue that builds with its main protagonist, which is going to be played by Henry Golding. And it got me excited in ways that are just really, I guess, tough to explain. It's just the action sequences. I'm a sucker for action, and when you include a ton of it in the movie, and also a little bit of intrigue with Henry Golding's character trying to go through, I guess, this organization. Like I said, I don't know anything about G.I. Joe, so some of you might know what I'm talking about, but it just got me really excited for the movie overall. And I honestly can say my interest went from not being interested at all to being totally interested. In fact, I can't wait to go see this movie in a couple of weeks. So it gives me something new to look forward to, some new IP to get exposed to, but also the fact that it stars Henry Golding. He is a pretty famous high caliber actor. I saw him first in a movie called A Simple Favor, which was a Hulu movie starring Anna Kendrick and also, oh wow, why am I freezing on her name? Blake Lively. That, I don't know why that escaped me for a second, but yeah, starring Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively. And I thought that movie was really good, and Henry Golding was good in it too, but I'm not really too familiar with his work, and I'm excited to see what he brings to the table for this movie. So, like I said earlier, I gotta give it to this trailer. This trailer was awesome. It went, my anticipation level went from not interested at all to totally interested. So, my friends, with that, what did you think of the movie trailer? Are you excited to see G.I. Joe Origins Snake Eyes? Whatever you think, comment below. Let me know. All right, so the last movie trailer I'm going to talk about for this particular main topic is going to be Jungle Cruise. So Jungle Cruise is going to be starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Emily Blunt, both of which are probably some of the world's most famous actors at this point. The Rock has become arguably one of the world's biggest stars in the past decade. He has gone, his career has just gone through the roof, and Emily Blunt the same thing because of A Quiet Place and of other couple of titles that she's been in. Plus, A Quiet Place Part 2 is really good, guys. If you haven't seen it, go and watch it. However, I hadn't even really heard of Jungle Cruise going into watching this trailer. It gives me, I believe it's a movie made by Disney, so it's got those Disney vibes where it's a lot more whimsical and fun. And who doesn't enjoy whimsical and fun? And that's the impression I got from this trailer, so it also amped up my excitement a little bit. But the reality is, too, it's like when you have big name talent like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Emily Blunt attached to it, and they make the movie look like a ton of fun in the trailer, you can't help but at least garner some interest for the movie. Granted, after watching the trailer, I know almost nothing about the movie whatsoever, so I guess that's one con of the trailer. But then again, as a trailer, you don't want to reveal too much, so I guess it kind of teeters on the side of caution. Regardless, I'm going to say that the trailer definitely amped up my excitement for the movie, and I can say with confidence that I will be going and seeing Jungle Cruise when it comes out on July 30th. I'm really excited for the movie overall. Like I said, the only thing I know about it is it's starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and also Emily Blunt. So now I ask you, my friends, what do you think of the Jungle Cruise trailer? Are you excited for it? Whatever you think, comment below and let me know. And all right, friends, before I exit this main topic, I want to ask you, are there any other movies that are coming out in the next few weeks that I might have missed? What other trailers have flown on your radar that increased your anticipation or maybe even lowered your anticipation for the movie? Whatever you think, you know where the comment section is. Let me know. The next thing I want to talk about for this episode of Coffee and Kernels is I noticed something else really particular in watching the movie trailers that I went and watched this weekend in theaters. I've noticed that trailers are starting to incorporate a lot more messages from actors that are encouraging viewers like myself to come to the theaters and start watching movies again, which overall, it's really, really interesting. The two examples for me that come to mind, G.I. Joe Origins Snake Eyes, Henry Golding gave a little message after the trailer encouraging audiences to do just that. And then also Emily Blunt and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, they gave message to audiences to come and see Jungle Cruise in theaters and when it was coming out, July 30th, that is. And it's not something very typical that I've seen throughout my history of watching movies, which is my entire life. And I just thought it was really interesting. And it makes a lot of sense, at least for the film's perspective, for a few reasons. One, a lot of times when movies are made, they are made and meant for the big screen. That's just how they were conceived. That's how they meant to be seen. And a lot of directors and artists often support that type of viewing experience. Christopher Nolan, that's just one of many directors. It makes sense that actors are supporting that message because I'm sure a lot of them feel the same way. And the second reason being why it makes sense is the fact that movies a lot of times make most of their money, if not all of their money, from ticket sales at the box office. The way the movie industry works, it's like without the box office and without theaters, it becomes really hard for these movies to make a ton of money, that being up to the $1 billion range, the hundreds of $1 million range, etc. and so forth. That's just the way the industry works. So the more people that they can get to actually come to the theaters and watch the movie, the more money they can make, and the more money they can make quickly rather than putting it out on VOD, that's video on demand. So like, for example, Disney Plus with their Premier Access stuff. I mean, me personally, I'm totally okay with allowing both video on demand on the day it comes out and also in theaters, because you're giving consumers more choice. in doing so, but I just thought it was really interesting that these actors have been giving these messages after their trailers to kind of help promote people and encourage people to go to the movies for those two reasons that I mentioned earlier. And plus the third reason I want to mention too is the fact that now that the pandemic is at a much lower prolific, I guess you could say, in recent months, number of cases have been going down, things like that, and in order to kind of help people, encourage people to get back to the movies, really, what better way to do it than have your A-listers give a message to the audience saying, hey, please come watch us because we love you guys, we need you guys, come watch us in theaters. And a lot of people get drawn to that. So it makes a ton of sense. And in a post-COVID world, as I hope we're starting to approach a post-COVID world, it makes sense that it's just part of making people aware, hey, we're in theaters, come on, come on, come watch us, and you won't be disappointed. So for those three reasons, I would say it's a really interesting trend I've noticed, and I'm not surprised that actors have done it. And I actually think it's a really effective tactic by these studios to employ to get people back to the movies. So those are just my thoughts on that. But friends, I want to know what you think. Have you noticed these messages after credits or after trailers from these actors? If so, which movies have they been for? And what do you think of the overall situation? Whatever you think, you know where the comment section is. Let me know. Alright, so, who's ready for a good time? Black Widow is the prequel standalone movie surrounding the Marvel Cinematic Universe character Natasha Romanoff, or Black Widow as a lot of you probably know her as, portrayed by Scarlett Johansson. For those of you who are deeply into the MCU, this movie takes place between Captain America Civil War and Avengers Infinity War. In the movie, Natasha is sent by a message of sorts from her sister Yelena, portrayed by Florence Pugh. So Natasha's on the run from an international organization known as S.H.I.E.L.D. in the Marvel Universe, while Yelena is on the run from an organization we know as the Red Room. The Red Room is an organization that Natasha used to be a part of, Yelena's currently a part of and is just escaping, and it's basically an organization filled with assassins that are under mind control. Natasha gets this message from her sister Yelena. They meet up, they get together, and they decide that their common goal is going to be taking down the Red Room and freeing all of the other assassins from the organization so that they can have free life and not be under mind control anymore. Along the way, they get the help from their mother and father. Their father is Alexei, played by David Harbour, and their mother is Melina, played by Rachel Weisz. And from there on, we have a really fun summer movie. So what did I really enjoy about this movie? This movie is a perfect definition of a fun, action-packed summer movie with a little bit of humor sprinkled in. Florence Pugh supplies a lot of the humor in this movie as kind of the younger sister, while Natasha Romanoff supplies most of the guardian sort of character, you know, looking after her younger sister, while the younger sister is just giving her a ton of shit along the way. Like I said, this is a really fun, action-packed summer movie. It's like one of those classic Marvel movies from earlier on, when it had a lot of action, a lot of explosions, and it was just a lot of fun to watch, and it's nice and fast-paced, so it's like you're always on the edge of your seat, and you're always really excited, and it makes the movie really engaging and fun to watch. And plus, there's a lot of great fight scenes, too, and a lot of really fun takedowns as well. It's like, they get a little bit creative at points in these fights, and it also adds a little bit of novelty as well, which I really appreciated. Also, I really love the sisterly dynamic between Scarlett Johansson and Florence Pugh in this movie. When they were separated, they have their very admirable personalities. You get more of their personality traits. Like I said with Scarlett Johansson, she is more of the charismatic guardian in this case, while Florence Pugh is more of the younger sister who's got a lot of humor to her, a little bit more whimsical and a little bit more fun. And then when they were together, you really bought into a sisterly relationship that they had. You could tell that there was a lot of love there and that they really wanted what was best for each other. And honestly, in this movie, I was especially impressed by Florence Pugh. I would actually argue that this movie is more surrounded towards her character as Yelena more than anything, and I thought she did a really great job crushing it. The movie explores a bit more of her character conflict overall, and she really brings it home and helps solidify how impactful it has on her character, which I thought was really great. And also the family dynamic between the four characters in this movie, that being Alexei, Natasha, Yelena, and Melina, I really enjoyed their family dynamic. It sort of reminds me of the movie Incredibles with the Parr family. Except in this movie, of course, it's a little bit more adult, but it was a very lighthearted, very innocent sort of family feel that I really grew to appreciate. What are some of the things I didn't like so much about this movie? I would say that at some points, the action got a little bit outlandish for me. They ask you to kind of suspend your disbelief a little bit too much at times, but it's never too overbearing to where it takes you completely out of the movie and ruins the experience. There are just some action sequences where I'm watching and it's like, could that really be possible? Probably not, but in the tone of the movie, I think it fits just fine. Another thing I didn't enjoy is the pacing does slow down at one point in the movie. It kind of kills the momentum. For about the first half of this movie, it's packed with action. It's a ton of fun. It's really fast paced. And then there's a point where it does slow down, and it's not that I had a problem with it slowing down. I just think it's slowed down for a little bit too long. If they had maybe spread out that particular portion throughout the movie a little bit more, or if they just kind of condensed it down a little bit, I think it would have been fine, but I think it was just too slow for too long. And also a couple of bonus side notes. There is a post-credit scene in this movie, so if you guys are into the Marvel Universe, stick around to the very end of the movie for that. And also another thing, my man OT is in this movie. OT is in The Handmaid's Tale, for those of you who are into The Handmaid's Tale talk that I've done for season 4. All right, so my friends, overall, I would say if I had to give this movie a score, it is a great movie. It is an 8 out of 10 for me. It is so great that I would actually go and watch the movie twice in theaters. I was originally going to give it a 7 out of 10, but the fact of the matter is, if I'm going to go see it multiple times in theaters, I got to have it get a higher score, so that's why I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. It's a fantastic summer movie with a ton of action in it, fun for the whole family. It's got some really fun characters, especially with Florence Pugh. She absolutely crushes it, and David Harbour as Alexei is really good and fun and whimsical as well. And there's some really good, deep, interesting character conflict that I didn't want to spoil in this review, and I just want you to go experience for yourself. At times it does lull, it gets a little bit outlandish. It's not a perfect movie by any means, but it's a fun summer movie for everybody. Go see it. I don't think you'll be disappointed. All right, my friends, so have you seen Black Widow? If so, what did you think of it? Or if you are going to see it, are you looking forward to it? Whatever you think, feel free to comment below and let me know your thoughts. All right, another week, another episode of Loki. Let's talk about it. So this is season 1, episode 5 of Loki. This is going to be a spoiler discussion for it, ladies and gentlemen. So if you haven't seen episode 5 of Loki, go ahead, watch it, come back and watch this video. Otherwise, if you don't care about spoilers, welcome to the party. We're gonna have a ton of fun. This episode picks up right where the post-credit scene of episode 4 left off. Loki wakes up and he is surrounded by 4 different variants. He wakes up in this post-apocalyptic scene of New York. Right when he wakes up, he basically is already starting to plot and scheme in order to get his way out of wherever he currently is now, because he doesn't exactly know where he is. All of his variants are telling him there's really nothing you can do. The only thing to do here is survive. The reason being is because we're constantly being chased by that thing, which is a giant cloudy leviathan. It kind of reminds me of the Aladdin tomb or whatever it was. It was really interesting, but yeah, it basically chases everybody down, consumes them in some fashion, and I don't know what it does to them, and the show doesn't really quite say, but that's what they're trying to avoid. Meanwhile, while Loki is trying to scheme to get his way out of wherever he's going, Sylvie is trying to get as much information out of Ravonna as she possibly can. Basically, the 2 bits of information Sylvie is after is where is Loki, and also where are the timekeepers. So in order to figure out where exactly Loki is, Ravonna actually reveals what happens when somebody is pruned. Basically what happens is when someone is pruned, they're not actually dead. They don't die. They're actually transported to this place at the very end of the timeline, which is called the Void. And the reason that when people are pruned that they're sent to this void is because of the fact that the end of time is still being written by the timekeepers, and because it's still being written as we speak, it's almost like an apocalyptic event where you can do whatever you want and nothing is going to happen. A Nexus event won't be created, a separate timeline won't be created. It won't matter because the end of time is still being written as we know it, so you can't cause any harm. Because of the fact that they're at the end of it, they're out of the way and they can't disrupt the sacred timeline. I'll explain a little bit more. I want you to picture this. I want you to picture a marathon race, right? You have the runners of the marathon, and then you have those jokers who might try to put obstacles in the way. Now, in order to make sure that those marathon runners can get to the end of the race without being interrupted, you've got to somehow remove those jokesters and those obstacles so that they can finish their race. You can't put them off to the side to watch the race because who knows what shenanigans they might pull. The only place that you can put them is at the very end of the race, because at that point, even if they're causing mischief and chaos, it's not going to get in the way of the marathon runners winning the race. And even if they do, the marathon runners will have already finished the race. They'll have already run all the way through, and once they finish the race, nobody cares, and everything can go chaotic-like. So basically, Sylvie figures out that Loki is in this void. But what about the second point? What about the timekeepers? So Ravonna also reveals that the timekeepers are actually at the end of the void. So it's kind of a really big meta moment, right? It's like they're past the end of time, writing time as we know it, which is right, like it's a really big meta moment. But Sylvie knows then, okay, if they're beyond the void writing it, how do you get to it? There's got to be some way to get to it. Ravonna kind of feeds her a little lie like, oh, there's this prototype craft that can get you there. Well, Sylvie, being a Loki variant herself, smells the bullshit and discovers that it's a trick to double cross her. So she takes the Tim pad and then she decides to prune herself effectively because now she knows, one, to get to Loki, she's got to go to the void. How do you get to the void really quickly? You zap yourself. So she does that and she gets to the void, wakes up just like Loki does. And plus, by doing that, by getting to the void, you get a step closer to getting beyond the void, because where she was at in the timeline was obviously not the end of time. So in order to get there, you gotta get to the void. So she kills two birds with one stone. She finds Loki and gets closer to the timekeepers. So now she's in the void. She wakes up. That giant Leviathan cloud is kind of chasing her. And who pulls up in a pizza car but Mobius? Our friend Mobius comes to her rescue, and then they start driving away, and then they end up reuniting with Loki, and then they start to hatch their plan. Sylvie reasons that the only way to really get to the timekeepers is probably through this giant Leviathan cloud, that it's probably acting like a guard dog for something. It's got to be protecting something. It's not there just to cause mass chaos and destruction. So basically, here's their plan. Loki and Sylvie, they're going to try to enchant this Leviathan and distract it, so that they can get through it and get to the timekeepers at the end of the void. Mobius is going to use the Tim pad that Sylvie grabbed from Ravonna, get back to the TVA, and then he's going to take out the TVA from there. Which kind of makes sense, right? Because he's going to be fighting, or they're all going to be fighting a fight on two fronts. One is going to be the source of all the power, and the other is going to be the base of it, which is going to be the TVA. So when they both execute this plan, Mobius and Loki give a little hug, they go about their merry way. And then at the end of the day, Loki and Sylvie, their plan succeeds. They enchant the Leviathan and they get to beyond the void, and that's where the episode kind of ends. And then along the way, they get a help from the older Loki variant, which I thought was really cool as well. One sidebar that I really wanted to mention, because this is important for Loki's character development, Loki and Sylvie kind of have this more intimate conversation in this episode. And it basically reveals to us as the audience, and for them as each other, that they actually deeply care about each other. And the fact of the matter is, it's not something that they've really done before, because Sylvie's been on the run for her entire life, can't really get close to anyone, and Loki has just been Loki. So yeah, it's very much new for the both of them. Sylvie on one hand is wondering if she can trust Loki not to betray her at the end of all this when they accomplish their goal, which is crushing the TVA and the timekeepers. And Loki tells her, like, hey, I have seen and been through experiences now that I never thought I would ever go through, and it's fundamentally changed who I am as a person. I care about you. Like, I'm not going to disappoint you. And to me, that's been one of the most important parts of this entire series, is literally transforming Loki as a character, as this insecure demigod who all he wants to do is rule and make others feel small, to him actually being capable of being a good person, actually caring about others. I mean, even just looking beyond Loki and Sylvie, look at Loki and Mobius. Like, Loki and Mobius deeply care about each other as friends. They hug. Loki, I don't think, has ever hugged anybody before, at least that we've seen. So really profound stuff, and I think it's made for the most interesting arc of the entire series, and I've really grown to enjoy it. Overall, just Loki's development's been really cathartic and satisfying to watch. So overall, what did I think of episode 5? I'm going to say it felt a lot like episode 3. This was more of what I would call a pivot episode. Some might call it a filler episode. I like to more think of it as a pivot, because it's more of a transition, right? It's like you're going from really one point to another with not really a whole lot of plot happening within it. Having said that, what are some of the cons of this episode? Where am I coming from? A lot of this really felt like unnecessary filler. There was a lot of time spent with a lot of different Loki variants, a lot of double crossing, and even in that scene in the cavern where him and the 4 other variants, including the alligator, are all kind of talking about their Nexus events, it didn't really feel overall necessary. Although it was fun and it was kind of cool, it just didn't really do anything for the overall plot of the series itself. Also, we didn't really get a lot of information about Ravonna. Ravonna has established herself as having this undying loyalty to the TVA no matter what. Even when she knows the truth about how she was a variant and had a life beforehand, she's still extremely loyal to the TVA, and the show never really tells us why. I'm hoping they tell us why in episode 6, the finale, but it just doesn't quite walk that line, and I would have loved for it to have done so. And then plus, we didn't really get much payoff at the end of the episode. Like, we know that Loki and Sylvie succeed and they enchant this monster, and they're now, like, this close to getting to the timekeepers, but I would have loved to have just seen like a little glimpse of who the timekeepers are, just to get a little bit more of catharsis at the end of the episode, because it felt like it was kind of just short-lived at the very end there. I would have just liked to have seen a tiny bit more to get my excitement going for the season finale, or series finale, I should say. Overall, what did I really like about this episode? I think we had a decent amount of questions answered from episode 4. One, we kind of get the confirmation that Loki and Sylvie, in fact, do deeply care for each other, which is great, because then it shows their character development and what they're capable of just as good people, or gods, I guess you could say. But we got the answer of, where does one go when they're pruned? What happens when they're pruned? What happens when they're reset? They're one in the same question, but you get where I'm coming from. And also, we kind of get the layout for the rest of the series, there only being one episode left. We get that Mobius is going to go take down the TVA, while Sylvie and Loki are going to go after the timekeepers. Like I said, battle on 2 fronts. One's going after the base, one's going after the very tip of the iceberg. So my friends, if I had to give this episode a score, I'm going to say it was a 6 out of 10. It was just okay. I would say that if looking back on it, I probably should have given episode 3 the same score. However, I did like episode 5 a little bit more, ironically enough, but I can't change the past. I can't go back and change my score. Such is the way of life. All right, so, and then just lastly, I'll leave you with questions that I have going into episode 6. Again, what is Ravona's main motivation? Is she one of the timekeepers herself? I have a slight theory that just crossed my mind this morning. Is it possible that her and her variants are the timekeepers? That's a very weak theory, I acknowledge that, but it's just kind of fun and something that crossed my mind. And also, if it's not Ravona, or if Ravona's not one of the timekeepers, who exactly are the timekeepers? I know that a lot of people have been saying Kang the Conqueror. I don't really know much about the comics, so I don't have a ton of theories in that department, so I'm curious to see who they end up being. Also, will this end of this series end up leading to another Marvel title? It seems like it's been a really recent trend lately, and I'm curious to see if it'll lead into Doctor Strange 2, for example. I've heard that's another theory going around. Also, will Loki stay true to his word to Sylvie? Will he not betray her by the time this is all said and done? I think that he won't, and I think that him and Sylvie will walk out of this very happy with each other. But there's only one way to find out. We gotta watch the end of the series. And then lastly, the most cathartic of all this, what's gonna happen to Mobius, and will he get his jet ski ride? I'm hoping we get to see him go on the jet ski that he's been craving to ride and give it a run. So fingers crossed, my friends. So that is it for Loki episode 5. What did you think of it? Whatever you thought of it, feel free to comment below and let me know your thoughts. All right, my friends, thank you so much for watching this episode of Coffee and Kernels. Once again, I greatly appreciate you stopping by. If you like what you're hearing and seeing, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe for more great content and to join in on the fun. Once again, this has been the Bankrupt Hippo YouTube channel. I've been Bryson. Until next time, have a great day.